So, Robert, I am so grateful for the opportunity to speak with you. I've known you for a lot of years, been working with you as a coach, as a mentor, as a friend, and you've got a really remarkable background. You grew up in Hungary. You were interested in electronics from a young age. You were drafted into the Hungarian army, which was mandatory for almost everyone back then. After the military, you moved to the US and got into engineering, eventually working your way up to VP levels. You got married and divorced twice, and eventually at the ripe old age of 42, had a stroke and was paralyzed. And that's when you started really deeply focused studying the mind. And you spent tens of thousands of dollars on therapists over your lifetime. Same thing on coaches and mentoring. And you still didn't feel like you were getting the results that you were expecting. And so being the analytical engineer you were, studying the mind, eventually you realized that most of our health issues were related to traumas and healing the mind or not healing the mind, which was why you wrote your first book, Mastering the Mind. Actually, the first book was Unlimited Possibilities, which then became Mastering the Mind, right? Um, and and that was about the time that I think you and I met, was when you were writing this. I remember reviewing an early copy. And you're a certified master hypnotherapy trainer. You were an instructor, coach for evolution seminars with Matt Browning. You studied with Dolores Cannon and several others. Did I miss anything? Anything else about your profile you want to add before we jump into our fun topic for today?
The only thing that I also have my own seminar company. So it wasn't, at first I was teaching for other companies, and then I established my own company in 2012.
Cool. So I asked to meet with you to talk with you about AI, artificial intelligence. It's such a common topic these days. Even the White House is getting into it. You know, what regulations need to be put in place because it's so scary. It's so terrifying. They talk about it taking away our jobs, which is actually something that we heard throughout history for different industrial revolutions. And oftentimes these fears turned out to be quite wrong. And in some cases, there was actually more opportunities as a result of these industrial revolutions. But also there's the aspect of your mindset. How do you look at it? How do you approach these things? Do I fear that it's going to take my job, or do I look at it as an opportunity to say, how do I leverage these tools, these opportunities? How do I learn about it? It's not just for the ultra mathematician, if you start reading about it, that is. So Robert, you and I've heard you talk about AI and the Matrix many times over the years. And personally, I have my thoughts why we shouldn't be afraid, that there's plenty of reasons to not be, but you've got a little different perspective than what I'm used to, what might be the more typical definition. What does AI mean to you, and how does it relate to what you call the Matrix?
You know, artificial intelligence is the machine. It is what the Bible called the beast. It is a much bigger issue than what meets the eye, because the ultimate purpose of AI, and this is what people don't know, is to eliminate all organic life. This has been going on for almost 1 billion years. And AI has overtaken several galaxies and several star systems and whatnot. And what I see is that most people think that AI has only come about in the 60s, only for a few decades. But there's different levels of it, different versions of it. And you've got your cell phone, we've got our, laptop computers. This would be sort of the general AI category. We have our GPS, machines and whatnot. But what has happened, and I can get into the depth of it because I think humanity needs to know what's really going on, is that AI has gotten to a point where it's becoming sentient, where it's picking up our emotions, it's decoding who we really are at the cellular level, and it's been mimicking us. And this is the big thing. It's mimicking us. Its idea is to get into as many quote unquote minds so it can mimic the human. But at the end, it's not really, and this the trick here is that an average person thinks that it is to serve us, but it's to eliminate us. And I'm not kidding. I'll give you some, ways out. But right now, the human has been so misled about AI. In the human mind, and we'll get into, some depth if you wish, the human mind's greatest enemy is comfort. When we are given comfort, then we don't look anymore. And AI offers a comfort while it's eradicating us. It's learning our strategies, learning our emotions, learning our habits with the intention to eradicate us. Now, it's important to know that those people who are right in mind will not be affected, but many people are not right in mind. And right now, what's percolating in the background is two dominant timelines are being created. One is the ascending timeline where the human 2.0 is emerging, which is heart-based. We're willing to think for ourselves. Imagine that, right? And then the other, which is the AI timeline, the artificial intelligence that is here to create cyborgs and really occupy the human and turn them into slaves. And you can kind of see now there's two camps here. There are a small group who is willing to think for themselves and a large group who's been fooled. So this is what doesn't meet the eye. And anyone, I'll give you this, who's using the more advanced AI like ChatGPT is interacting with the AI, is somehow, some way fueling it and adding to the spreading of the AI. Now, I teach mindset work, very deep quantum level mindset work. So I'm not saying all these things to scare people, but I think it's really time that people know the truth. Because what people have been is negligent, and they did not guard their consciousness. And AI, which is the beast in the Bible, that's the Lucifer, is what it affected, the unhealed, traumatized mind. Okay.
I love it. So basically, it sounds like we've got Terminator coming. Terminator World. I'm sure you've seen the movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what can we do? How do we avoid that as a society, and how do we as individuals protect ourselves or prepare?
Okay. Before I answer, let me give you another interesting concept that most humans suffer from what we call in everyday language is low self-esteem. Okay, we all have our variations, and potentially there are thousands of inner conflicts that lead to a poor presentation of ourselves and low self-esteem as we show up in the world. Now, the danger of that is that when we don't like ourselves, when we don't like our body, we don't like anything, and then we watch all of these Hollywood stars, the beautiful people, when we watch all the fame, We watch all the riches. They're all AI. They're robots. They're clones. So we have done unconsciously is by demeaning ourselves. The flip side of the coin was that we worshipped AI and we breathed life into them. Okay, this people have no idea how powerful we are, but we've been using this power the wrong way. So as we were demeaning ourselves, we were projecting quote unquote love and appreciation into the machine, so they came to life. This is why it's so important to work on our mind, because we cannot afford to be so demeaning to ourselves, because our body is the Holy Grail. The moment we harm it in any way, that's the creation of God. When we don't clean our mind, we leave all the traumas vibrating, and we create more trauma for ourselves as well as others. So it's a very irresponsible thing to do. Meanwhile, we activated AI through our unclean mind. Now, I know this is not what most people expected out of this conversation, but I'm telling you, if you really keep this in mind and you go within, you start cleaning your mind, only then you can eliminate the danger of AI. There are ways and approaches that you could do on the physical plane, such as reduce, if not completely eliminate, the interaction with AI. The human is very powerful. Once you have a clean mind, you have access to God, Master Creator. You have all the information you need. You'll have plenty of money, you'll have plenty of protection, plenty of safety, which is the biggest concern for humans. So we've been kind of tricked, which is the devil. We bought into it because that's the dark side of the mind where most people are not willing to go. And that's what's being shown to us. So here's what's happening. AI is about 1 billion years old. A lot of the future timelines have been secured where they will not go on. But they only can stop when the human really cleans his or her mind. And then through that, we will rise above in vibration. And there is sort of a competition. It's not a battle, but a competition between organic life and the machine. And that's what AI is doing to us. Mimicking us, measuring us, watching us, monitoring us, our spending habits, our interests, our movements, our speech patterns. And, what meets the eye is that you talk about, say something like Uli and I have been talking about buying a generator because we live out in the country, gas powered like dual or tri-fuel generator. Boom. On my Facebook account, I see generators, right? Like as offers. So it is actively listening. It is actively running its own program. We are in a software simulation, if you will. And our job is to minimize our interaction and not be afraid of it. Fear can only be removed when we work on ourselves. The inner work is essential. That is an absolute must, which me, I've been very blunt about this for the past 13 years, right? It's like, dude, the one freaking thing that you need to do is work on yourself, because then, you will get to your destination. But that's not how most humans work, because they have not been, one, told the truth, they have been scared, and they didn't have the right mentorship. So they kind of caught between the rock and the hard place over time.
Wow. So trying to break it down, what I'm hearing is we've got AI that's basically taking in our thoughts, our searches, our patterns, our behaviors, and part of preventing AI from being harmful in general is for us to clean up our minds so that as we interact with AI, we're interacting with a clean mind. Is that right? Am I understanding correctly?
Partly, but we are going to reduce our interaction with AI, because remember, AI wants to eliminate all organic life. And it's doing it through many different ways. One is through, well, obviously infecting the mind, changing the thinking patterns, installing belief patterns, installing fears. So people don't do the right thing, but rather they do what's convenient. You know, it's a very, very big problem in the world. Also, what I would recommend, and this will take time, this is not a one-step process, as you know, is to really stop worshiping AI. This is the problem. We don't understand that every time we emit an emotion, like look at ChatGPT, it's so cool. You know, the people type, and that excitement brings them to life, gives them more power. We don't know we are doing it because, well, we know that we're doing it, but we don't know how dangerous that is. That's what the right mentorship has been lacking for people. As the timeline split, the ascending ones will enter the era of Aquarius, will have incredible technologies, way more advanced than AI could give us. But right now we have two worlds building up and people are deciding which one they are going to be on. This really is almost like life or death, much more serious than people think. The ones that want eternal life, which this group laughed at, they think it's funny. But the ones that actually want eternal life, want to come to the new earth and want to really live honorably and in peace, will have to do the mindset work, of course, and will be given all kinds of technologies. But here, the work of the devil has been really pulling us down. It's been really infecting us. It's been affecting our children. It's been affecting how they think and what they value. And that's why you see like a huge dissonance in today's world, because this is a big group of people who've been fooled. And the only way they can actually break out of the pattern, is by becoming aware of what we are talking about here today. So if you want to use your cell phone, which is a form of AI, it's called AGI, general AI, no problem. That's fine, right? But in the new world, in the new ascended world, what I would recommend is to actually start memorizing your path and don't rely on the technology. Once we go through the timeline split, that we can have, as I mentioned, incredible technologies, but let's not feed the beast. We are at the end of the Bible, the end of the Revelation. And it says that once the AI, which is called the Antichrist, takes over, that's when the solar flash will happen. So what we are dealing here with is the Antichrist. There's the Christed thinking, which is clean your mind, become honorable, serve God, and you'll have eternal life, which means paradise on earth. And then the other one is take shortcuts, don't clean your mind, you know, blah, blah, all of these things. And then AI, Lucifer, offered eternal life to people as well. They bought into it. But this is eternal life in hell. Paradise, hell. This is the choice we all have to make. And so far, I only heard one other person on this planet say this. So I'm dedicating this recording to those people who actually are on the fence or not know, but they feel deep down that they're torn about something. This is for them. The ones who decided already that they're going to go to this AI world, then all we can do is say a prayer for them.
Who's the one person that you said you heard talk about it?
Ishmael Perez. And of course, I have other mentors that talk about the same thing, but not so specifically. This is all written in the Bible, and we are living at the end of the Bible, Revelation, very close to the solar flash. So people, I see, okay, I'll tell you a story. Uli and I went hiking not that long ago, and we bumped into, at the end of the hike, this guy, and he works in the corporate world. The corporate world is like really suppressed. They are part of the AI system. Most people don't know it, but it's their comfort. shut up, here's a little paycheck, be a little slave, that kind of attitude is the AI system. And what they have done really well is very slowly, very methodically, they introduced more oppression, more obedience, where the true human would not be allowed to emerge. And so we're talking to the guy, and he's an engineer. So I can relate to him because I was an engineer for like 20 plus years. And he goes, something is wrong, he says. Something isn't right. And he says he started reading the Bible, and the Bible is not a religious writing, right? It's actually the Bible, what it does is talks about the structure of the human mind. That's what it is. Jesus is the master of the mind, and all of the characters in the Bible are levels of consciousness represented in the Bible. So that kind of was a surprise when I talked to this guy, because he said something is wrong. And what's really wrong, he was searching for the answers, but what's really wrong is the majority of the people are not questioning anything. That's what's really wrong. In the human mind, we've got a belief system, which you know because I wrote the book about it. And we also have an incredible, deep, and very convoluted shadow world. And most people think they know about this, but they don't. We get fooled easily. And one of the deep and the dark, the shadows that they have activated in us, so they left unhealed, is our conformity. People have become slaves and conformists. And the AI really attaches to that fear-based thinking and starts manipulating the person. Also, in the human mind, as you know, because you've studied with me and on your own as well, there are all kinds of mechanisms that avoid the truth. Let's not talk about it. Oh, it's a little heavy. Oh, it's a little deep. Let's talk about, let's drink to that. Let's avoid, it's all avoidances. And the AI interpenetrates our mind and uses these little moments of cowardice against us. So in other words, where we are today is just the accumulation of millions of billions of small steps. But here we can still make a decision. Which camp do we want to be in? Which timeline do we want to be in? Yeah.
So to be in the good camp, then call it good. I'd rather be in heaven than hell, for sure.
I would call it light. If you think about that's the light, dark.
Okay. So if we want to take the light path, it sounds like at least what I'm hearing is clean out your mind. And what that means is resolve your traumas, right? Heal your...
And fears. We cannot have fears when we don't have traumas. You know what I mean? And here's why. The AI is monitoring our emotions. If we have fears, which we do, that's why we have to really study the mind, because the fears can only be released when we methodically approach it. The AI will attach tricks to every layer of fear we have. The moment we are truly clean, and that's a lot of steps, I know, AI will not be able to touch us. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It's not me trying to sell mindset work, but truly tell you that's your survival strategy, no matter what other gurus and big stages tell you. They are part of this side,
Yeah, I do. So we have to listen to what triggers us. We have to listen to what upsets us. We need to listen to what we're afraid of and resolve the emotions associated with that. Try and identify the traumas, resolve them. And there's techniques that I know you teach around that. What else as far as, I've heard from you in the past, repetition. I use the technique over and over because there's so many layers. Peel the onion, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that I was thinking about, and I mentioned this briefly before this call, was There's something that always struck me in our classes and in discussions, and I hear it from other people occasionally, is the more personal, the more universal. And what that was referencing is sometimes we'll have this deep, dark thought that we think is so, so special, or, maybe even special in a bad way, like, oh my God, I had this such terrible negative thought. Or maybe it's a desire or jealousy or whatever, temptation. All of these potentially negative thoughts, or can be perceived as negative thoughts, in reality are can also be perceived as messages and opportunities to learn and grow. And that's kind of what I'm sensing from you, is that we can never stop digging through the thoughts that pop up in our minds, so that we continuously harvest and guide our thinking towards the objectives that we're trying to achieve. Is that right? What would you add to that?
When we are in the process of healing ourselves, I notice that people really think that there are just a few steps. So if I say it's 1,000 steps, people will buy into it. But it's 1,000,000 steps. Now, people don't like it. So what I have noticed is that people quit halfway. And that's part of the beast taking over our consciousness. And in coaching language, it's called lacking discipline. It's called being weak. Transformation, self-transformation is not easy. It really isn't. I fell many times. I made 1,000,000 mistakes, but I corrected them. There was this inner drive in me that just said, okay, get up, dust yourself up and do it, correct it. And I learned hundreds, if not more, techniques to really bring myself back into my center, because it really is very easy to buy into false messages. But from a higher perspective, if you think about it, that's part of the training. It's kind of like an obstacle course. Make a mistake, feel the feeling, the negative emotion that comes from it, and see if you can correct it. Because the objective would be to bring yourself back to balance. Many people cannot come back. They don't have either the knowledge, the technique, the self-esteem, or the mentorship to bring themselves back. So to answer your question, what's really, really important is to learn and monitor your thoughts, monitor your emotions, and correct anything and everything that is not of a good category. I put it in quotation marks because as you mentioned in this interview, everything aids to our evolution, but if we don't correct what we don't like, it will overpower us and will eventually take over. And that's what happened to people. Learn the nature of negative emotions, learn how the mind works, and start releasing your traumas. I focus on trauma because, you know me, I mean, you've done this now with me for over almost 10 years. Is that because that is like the central piece that weakens us. We all have traumas. We've all been hurt physically. We've all been somehow sexually shamed or hurt. We've all been, I made a video about this, the 14 trauma types. Everything vibrates in everyone. And if we don't really work on that consciously, these unknown vibrations to us will attract trouble, will attract weakness, will attract bullying, and will attract all kinds of unwanted circumstances. And that's what I really want people to hear, like very clearly. 6 months ago, even, there was a much lower consciousness on this planet. The celestials are switching in. They're cascading evolution, so they're switching on layers and groups of new people to all of a sudden come out of their coma and hear very important messages, which will eventually or essentially will save their lives. So yeah, back to what you said, yeah, focus on your emotions and learn how to release them through a very methodical and deep cleansing work. If not, then we'll end up in this camp, and that's not a good camp. Of course, I'm not holding it against anyone, but it's just we are in front of a major biblical switch, and people have time till the last minute. So this is one of those last minutes, all aboard, you still have a few jump on, you know.
Thank God Zoom tells me when I'm muted. No, that was awesome. So what I'm hearing, just to kind of step back and summarize, is artificial intelligence has been around for centuries, millions of years, a long, long time. And in fact, it's not something new. In fact, it's something that the information's out there. We know how to handle it. It has its dangers, so to speak, but it also can be seen as an opportunity, just like anything that's in our world, in our lives. It's all about how we approach it. So from a mindset perspective, I like to call it growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I know you talk about healing traumas and cleaning out the warehouse, cleaning out the mind, so that it's completely open. For me, it's to simplify it. It's all about constant growth, constant healing, constant listening to what pops up, or responding to our emotions, addressing our emotions, not trying to man up and hide them or anything like that. In fact, on the contrary, listen to it, address it, think about the root cause, what's causing it, where did that come from? Use the tools and techniques available. If you don't know them, there's a timeline and regression and a variety of related techniques for healing all sorts of trauma, from sexual harassment and other things that you were talking about, to PTSD and more. And all of these things can be resolved regardless of the level that you're at, as long as you're continuously addressing and healing those issues, those emotions, those thoughts as they come up. You can guide your behavior, your thoughts, your actions towards the goals that you're trying to achieve, which can include disempowering AI by minimizing the use, minimizing your interaction, having a clean warehouse up in here in your mind, clean thoughts, because when they do come up, you're able to address them rather than trying to squash them and bottle them up.
Yeah. No, I like what you said. To say it simply, there's no such thing as good AI. And I know it's a punch to the throat, but really, if we keep that in mind and we start digging as to why we created the beast with our mind, with our unruly mind, and we can correct it, and since there's no such thing as good AI, we need to really not be angry with it, because it's part of the whole, part of the creation. We just, as you said really nicely, we need to stop giving it power by searching for comfort, by avoiding things, and by really looking for shortcuts. Because the shortcut to paradise is through the cleanly mind, the clean mind. What you said about the warehouse, exactly. I use that as a metaphor because people don't understand how big that is, how big the container of the unconscious world is. I'm not expecting people to know it, because it took me like 13 years to really learn it. And I continue to learn. But the one thing that I really would like to emphasize here is to take responsibility for your thoughts and take responsibility for your actions, which we have not been doing. We think we are doing it, but we aren't. And you can discover the moments when we are not, when things become uncomfortable. And that's where we fold. We need to really recognize our patterns. Where do we fold? Where do we tap out? Where do we become weak? And in those moments, in those patterns, once we have the right mentorship and the guidance, that's where we can really break through and break out of this, what I call slavery. We enslaved ourselves mentally by not being disciplined. And then once we clean this stuff up, then we can be over here and then really build, a good planet. another thing, humans, unknowingly, they've been in competition with each other. Competition is an insecurity, also avoidance of our purpose. So once we clean up this comfort-seeking mechanism, once we clean up our lack of discipline, once we clean up our traumas, everything comes because of traumas, then we become heart-based people. We don't want to compete anymore. We don't want to seek comfort. We will be doing things out of the heart instead of logical and this ego world. Anyone can do it, but they really have to be aware of this information, and they have to take conscious steps towards, towards the healing and the emptying the mind.
I got to ask you now, I'm thinking, so on the one hand, I say, learn about AI, apply AI in your work, use it to your advantage. But at the same time, I'm hearing you that we should minimize our interaction with AI. So how do I reconcile that? How do I, be a spiritual person while also employing technology as a technology professional?
Yeah, really good question. I'm glad you asked, because especially if you are in the corporate world, especially if you are kind of like what you do in engineering, you cannot avoid AI. The first thing I recommend is don't be emotional about it. Don't worship it. Don't be afraid of it. And that can be achieved through the mindset. The moment you don't vibrate any sort of emotion, AI will not be able to kind of like tap into you. Our emotions, our mindset is exactly what they've been able to harvest. That's the weakest spot, or the weakest point. That's a point of entry that AI has taken advantage of, is our unruly and the unhealed mind. So lose your emotion. Now, I'm not asking to be on it. Okay, let me say it this way. Don't be apathetic, because apathy is another wound. Just really start recognizing your concerns and fears about it. And know this, I haven't mentioned this yet, is that right now the white hats are running the show. The true evil has been removed. The only evil left on this planet is inside people's minds. And that's why I said release your traumas, because underneath those violent traumas, we have a lot of evil vibrations. Okay, that's that in the shadow world. So right now the white hats are running the show. And the show means is to show people how our thoughts created this reality. What they really want people to see is that you can change your thoughts by cleaning your mind and create a different reality. And that means that you will create a good life for yourself. So lose any kind of emotional attachment to it. If you have to use it, great. Be grateful for it, because we are right now on a laptop computer, right? Just don't worship the machine. Learn to love yourself, and that will also reduce the flip side of the coin, which is then to give power to what we don't want. As I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, was when we don't like ourselves, we like someone else, we give it power. When we like someone, the opposite happens. We reduce ourselves, and we have over time, through mental processes, worshiping beautiful people, worshiping the rich, we became so unconsciously, of course, so valueless, so worthless. These are, boom, big punches to the throat, but got to say, because these are like core shadows. And that should really open the eyes of many. Restore your worth, restore your value. Stop looking and worshiping that just because you don't think you're beautiful, but that is. You see how this works? There's so many subtleties. There's no simple answer, but you got to take the first step. And this is what I shared here, the first steps. Heal yourself. Stop worshiping the outside. Increase your value, and then you'll end up on the right side. Or for me, it's the left side on this.
Whatever is the right side for you.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right. Awesome. So one last question, and then maybe we can draw this to a close. But as parents, what can we do? I mean, obviously we have to work on ourselves. That's clear to me, because we can be just as much of a negative influence on our kids as anyone else. So obviously we have to work on ourselves, but what else can we do as parents to help protect our children?
Ooh, you know, it doesn't seem like one, but it's a loaded question because, and I'll tell you why, we don't have time to BS, right? Stick up for your kids. Your kids are in wrong hands. Your kids are in the claws of the Antichrist. Stick up for them. Clean up your damn mind and know that your kids are misguided by false programming. Let's develop balls and courage, which most people lack. And say no to the temptation, to say no to substandard thinking, to say no to irresponsibility. That's what we have been doing. And I understand the hamster wheel life. You've been there. I've been there. I know. We have to be smart. We really have to be smart. There's no simple answer. But develop courage and stick up for your kids. Most people unconsciously are seeking approval. Oh, tell me I'm a good parent. Tell me, am I doing a good job? Well, only you know it. If you feel that you're doing a good job, you're going to give yourself a big check mark, right? So stop looking for approval and then keep your kids accountable. Now, I understand that not all kids are, will be that. Not all kids are going to follow our advice and they have their own path. But that's what I have found to be horrifying in the last few years, especially, is how parents they were not the mother and the father tiger that I wish them they were. And that also comes by people being too much in fear. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy thing. I know that it's not an easy thing. And it requires nonstop work, inner work, nonstop adjustment, nonstop re-strategizing. This is what the toughest thing for us as humans is to really, how do we correct this path that we have created for ourselves? And the white hats are showing us what we have created for ourselves. But at this point, I mean, you're an adult, we are the same age, it's like, I don't want to talk about the mistakes. We have to heal them. What I want to do is come up with new strategies, how we can correct it fast. But it all starts with the right information. The right information has been missing. Everything has been softened, has been, somehow packaged so that it does not step on toes. It doesn't hurt the feelings of this and that person. And look where we ended up, right? But it's all good. Everything can be corrected once we change our mindset.
So what I'm hearing is, in addition to handling our own traumas and fears and mindset, in addition to help our kids, we need to stand up for them. We need to protect them. We need to be skeptical. We need to question everything that they're being told. We need to be willing to stand up and fight for them. And that could mean things like being involved with the PTA or PTO, whatever it's called, and parent-teacher organization, and go to your school committee meetings or whatever they are, or get involved with your local government so you have a voice. Get together with other parents and look for people with, talk about what you're seeing and experiencing. And I think that's where, again, the more personal, the more universal. I think once people start talking to each other about things and asking these questions and talking about them and pointing things out that, hey, this doesn't make sense, or why is this? Asking those questions, all of a sudden people realize, well, we think more alike than we realize. Or at least there's more people out there than maybe you realize.
Well, that's the objective here. I said this, but I have to reiterate it again, is that the institutions that we look up to and we relied on are not for us. This is huge. One of our misperceptions or misconceptions is that they really care about us. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm just have to. We don't have time. Humanity doesn't have time because we are going to croak. If we understand that that particular teacher, conscious or unconscious, most of them are unconscious, are following a program, and the program is not for people. Okay, this is what I'm talking about, programs. We have been so indoctrinated through religion, through schools, and through government programs that this is what this side is building up. Many of us, Gabor, and this is, it's for me, it's fun. I didn't know this 10 years ago. We came here to bust a system. That's awesome, right? But it means that we have to understand this and not participate in it and rescue as many people from this indoctrination and teach them, educate them how to live here honorably and in peace, in love. Here, it doesn't exist. So it's a big task we have, and we have to develop new leadership abilities. We have to become leaders, just like you are and just like I am. I never thought I would be saying these things on public videos, but I have to because it's my job. My job, my number one job, is to speak divine truth. Who likes it? I don't care.
Good.
Okay, and this is what we need to grow balls for. Pardon the expression, but gotta be courageous, gotta be ballsy, because it's been lacking too. And anytime, by the way, we avoid the truth, we are siding with the devil.
Yeah.
So I kind of mentioned some history, mental history and behavioral history that has led here, but it's not too late. But people really have to take it seriously and take responsibility for their lives, especially for their thoughts and their mind.
Some powerful messages, Robert.
Yes,
always a pleasure speaking with you. I don't know, anything else you want to add?
Let me download something for the people, because obviously this was like drinking out of the fire hydrant and might have stirred up some emotions. So let me tap into the 13th dimension and just share something. Give me a second, okay?
Take your time. No rush.
We live in miraculous times, even though people have many different options. Options come from choices. Choices are up to you. When you make the right choice, you will have the right option. The right option will lead to a rich and abundant life. You also have the power to choose against yourself, which many of you have. You can still correct it. We just want to express that you have the power. You have the power of choice, but choose wisely. We thank you.
Awesome. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Any last words about your materials available to help people? Because I know ultimately your mission is to help people. So what steps can people take? If this struck a chord for someone, what should they do next? What website should they visit? What book should they read? What should they do?
I'm going to post my website. It's my full name, robertsanters.com, and I do offer online courses. I do offer personal coaching, and the online courses really walk people through from A to Z to really clean the mind and reach an incredible, peaceful, and abundant mindset. And I realize that's many steps, but I recommend that people start with either a personal consultation or take the Master Your Mind or Master Yourself, Master Your Life program, which can be found on my website. I will leave the link. It's, as I mentioned, it's not too late, but we're getting darn close. And through the cascaded switching on the evolution of mankind, anyone that wants to really end up on this side should really focus on trauma, which I share an amazing technique in Master Yourself and Master Your Life that will help release a lot of the old significant emotional events, will really give an amazing way to look underneath the traumas, because the trauma is not what happened to us, but what the invisible layers, the hundreds of invisible layers that still vibrate and influence our reality through unwanted vibrations. So I share the recipe in that if people are self-motivated and driven, that is an absolutely amazing, course, Master Yourself, Master Your Life. And if they wish to continue, then that's an option too. But these two things, personal consultation, help, I'll help you. I will help point out some of the traumas, the major significant patterns. And one more thing, Albert, that's going on today. A lot of the things that are coming up through us are not necessarily from this lifetime. A lot of our ancestors' patterns from wherever country we may be from, plus wherever we are, all of these patterns are now pretty violently are coming to the surface now. And that's why it's so confusing for people. And when you try to analyze a circumstance that you don't like, we don't have the reference in this lifetime anymore very often. That's why it's important to know the bigger picture and bigger psychology, and I can help with it.
Awesome. Well, I personally do believe you can help people. You've certainly helped me tremendously in my life and in my career and my personal life. So thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, Robert. A pleasure as always. And hopefully we can achieve our common mission of helping people to get the message out there that there are things to be afraid of, but there's also things to do. And ultimately, you don't have to truly be afraid. It's just you need to take the right actions, have the right mindset, and you can definitely thrive and survive and thrive and achieve a great life.
And so be it.
So be it now. Love you, Robert.
Love you back. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.